All right, everybody. What an amazing time this is. So happy to have you guys who continue to return to these conversations, these transmissions that are just, I tell you, I look forward to Wednesdays. Maybe I should do this like every day because it's what it does to me is so amazing, and you guys keep coming back, so you clearly are receiving something from it. But it's so wonderful to allow God just to take over, just to speak and have that consciousness of love, of truth, that consciousness that knows everything, to have the ability to communicate through me, to transmit whatever it wants to transmit through me, is just so amazing, because it just activates this energy, this frequency within me, that it's just through the roof. Anyways, today I do have to end our transmission a little bit earlier. I have a friend who, his name is David McLeod. I've done a couple of conversations with him over the last decade that we've known each other. And he had asked me to come on his weekly program, which is also same day as we are. He happens to be 1 hour later than when we start these transmissions. And he wants me to talk about transcending the ego. Not too many people, even spiritual teachers, get the importance of having to transcend our ego. I watch many spiritual teachers talk about, you don't want to transcend your ego. Your ego is what makes you human. Yes, ego is what allows us to have a human experience, but ego holds us in a third dimensional frequency. Can you imagine having a human experience in a fourth dimensional frequency, a fifth dimensional frequency? That is what we are maturing into. So the ego is an immature aspect of ourselves that was necessary for our immature experience. The experience where we go to war with each other, where we hate on each other, where we're jealous of each other, where we kill and maim and rape and judge and blame and shame each other. Yes, you need an ego for that. That is absolutely true. Ego is what gives us a human experience. However, if you are bored of being judgmental, bored with fear, if you are done with murders and rapes and death and lies, if you're done with corruption, you must then desire to move into a more mature state of beingness. To go to a more mature experience as a human, you must let go of what keeps you, holds you in immaturity. It's no different than your training wheels on a bike. Yes, they serve a purpose, but if you want to be using training wheels when you're 36 years old, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. No judgment whatsoever. But if you want to have the freedom of letting go of the training wheels so that you can take your bike and go to places you cannot go with on a tricycle or a bike with training wheels, you have to make a decision to let go. And the only people that are ready to let go are those who are prepared to go through the discomfort, the wobbliness of letting go of their training wheels. I don't remember so much when I was a little girl in shifting from training wheels to my Schwinn, my red Schwinn bike. But I do remember my children. Because that's a little closer in memory to where I am today. I remember my children having a wonderful time on their training wheels, and they could go lots of places in their training wheels. But when it was time to let go of the training wheels, we went through an adjustment period. They were wobbly. They were shaky. There were times that they fell, and there were skin knees. And my daughter, shortly after the training wheels came off, she went over a curb that she couldn't go on when she had training wheels, but she went over a curb and fell and busted her chin and had to have stitches. That was a price that she had to pay to transition out of the training wheels and to move into a time where she could then ride her bike and go anywhere, and to feel confident that she could maneuver that bike of hers. That was a beautiful experience of liberation for her, but she had to go through the wobbliness of transitioning. Humanity is in a transition period. Some do not want to let go of the training wheels, and it is evident by the need to be right. That's how you see it. They have to be right about their position. They have to judge those who they consider wrong. And this is so evident. They are in fear. They will do whatever they are told to do by those that they think take care of them, protect them. We've been studying here in A Course in Miracles in the section that we're in, chapter 30, the new beginning, that we have to acknowledge the idols that we have created and given them authority over us. Well, many are going to choose to go down that timeline. Timeline is a word that has become so mainstream in the circles that really understand what's happening here. Those who are not only on a spiritual path, but what I would combine spiritual and truth path. Just because you're spiritual, you're not necessarily on a path of truth. If you are listening to your ego, you're not on a path of truth. Now, so the bigger picture, if we take a step back and look at the really big picture, everything is a path of truth. If you are here, if you're experiencing whatever you're experiencing, it is a path of truth. But as we move down the path of awareness, expanding our awareness, as we expand out of the limitations of the ego, as we align with the voice for God within, we begin to see very clearly that there is a big T truth and there is a little t truth. Capital T truth means that you're seeing things from the perspective of God, from the top of the mountain perspective. If you are down in the valley and you're looking at things just from the ego's perspective, it is true. It is true that people are dying. It is true that people are suffering. It is true that corruption and lies and illness and divorces and suffering and cancer, it is true. That is happening in the lower frequencies. In the higher frequencies, that does not happen, because in the higher frequency, you understand that everything is consciousness. Nobody dies. There are absolutely no souls that ever lose their lives. None whatsoever. None. However, at the dimension that we're at in this denser frequency, bodies do go through the death experience. Bodies are stabbed, bodies are raped, bodies die of old age, bodies fall and break their legs, and they have to be reset. Yes, that is true with a small t truth, because we are allowing the ego to dictate our experience, like the example that I just gave with the training wheels. Yes, there are training wheels that help us experience things at this level. Absolutely small t true. At the higher frequency, we are souls who are choosing to come to this level, to come to this level, to come to this level, to come to this level. And those same souls have been here many times. We call those incarnations, have had plenty of them, and go, you know what? I've already incarnated 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. I'm done with playing in that sandbox. I want to go to another sandbox. Well, if you go to another sandbox, I'm mixing metaphors, people. You know, I do this all the time. If you're going to use the training wheels, yes, you need your ego. The ego is what gives you the training wheels as part of the 3D game. If you want to let go of the training wheels, if you want to go to another sandbox, if you want different playmates, you must relinquish the old and move into the new. That is what this chapter is all about. The new beginning is a section in A Course in Miracles. It's a chapter in the Course that is attempting, well, it's not attempting, it's flat out giving us what needs to happen for us to experience a new beginning. One, you must let go of your idols. You cannot worship, idolize, look to anything or anyone outside of you as your true source. That doesn't mean we don't go to people that we trust and get advice and get suggestions, but do not make your decisions based on what somebody said. Make your decisions. They have to be made. In the new beginning, we make all decisions based on how we feel inside. During the transition, we will always feel good inside, even if we listen to someone that we believe has a little more wisdom, has more experience. It's okay. You're going to make decisions where it's going to feel good to follow suggestions. That's perfectly okay. The day comes, though, that you will go inside, you will check with something within, and you may hear the same message outside, and you will acknowledge, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But you go inside, and only inside do you make the choice for something to be a path that you're going to follow or not. But here's a distinction of when you're listening to the voice inside. It does not feel right or wrong. Now, let me say this again with more specificity. It does not feel right or wrong according to the world. It's not a decision that you make, well, I'm choosing this because this is the right thing, because that one would have been wrong. It's a knowingness that it is the next right step. It is not contrasted to a wrong step. Nothing would be wrong, because when you come inside, you recognize that every choice, every step is the correct one. So you move into a realm of neutrality, because it's no longer right, wrong. It is the next correct action. It's the next correct step to take. But you know it internally, because you have tapped into listening to your higher self or God or spirit, whatever you want to call it. You're listening to the aspect of you that is still in its non-physical state, recognizing that all that you are as a human is a tiny little sliver of yourself that has dipped through the veil to have an experience of incarnation. But who you are is what is connected. It is that bigger, greater, grander aspect of self that is not incarnated, but it is connected to all that is. So as we continue through this journey, in order to let go of the training wheels, you need to understand what is on the other side. You need to understand the freedom that comes by being untethered from the training wheels. To do that, well, we're going to take, my classes, I use the metaphor of a bridge. You're going to take a step and another step every now moment, every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade, every lifetime. You're going to take another step closer and closer and closer to accepting that you are non-physical. Once you ground yourself and you know, intellectually, you know that you are non-physical, and then you can objectively look at your decisions, look at how you judge the world, pay attention to what you're thinking, and you can begin to recognize, well, if I'm non-physical and everything else is non-physical, do people really die? And you can answer with sincerity, no souls have died. Then you have taken off the training wheels, because now you know that you're looking at life from the perspective of that which is eternal. Once you move to that place of eternalness, you enter into a level of freedom that is indescribable, because now you know body isn't real. You are not your body. You realize that you are not only here temporarily, so then you want to make the best of your experience here, but you begin to really get to know, well, if I'm not a body, what am I? And then you begin to really ground yourself, well, then I am consciousness. And what is consciousness? Is intelligence. How do I access that? Through my mind. And how does that get experienced here? Through the heart. Because when you understand that you are non-physical and you lose fear, you're not afraid of death, you're not afraid of getting sickness, because you understand, well, death is part of the experience. It's what we do with the training wheels, and sickness is part of the experience. The body is going to have experiences based on your level of consciousness, based on your level of thinking. If you have been conditioned to believe that the bodies die and the bodies get sick and you catch cold from other people, you're going to experience that, because in your agreement with those beliefs, you will experience whatever those beliefs dictate. Because when you understand that the mind creates your reality, your thoughts create your reality, then you know, well, no wonder people die. No wonder people get sick. No wonder cancer happens. We have been told, well, it's passed down from, family members. Told, well, you catch them from other people. Because when we agree to a belief being true, then we create that experience. So we agreed to the belief of an ego, meaning to the belief that we're separate, as being true. Because we agreed to that, we experience ourselves as separate. That is the training wheels. The training wheels say that I can only do so much because I'm separate, I'm not powerful. And then my life experiences are dictated by the beliefs that I hold that set the limitations for what is possible. And while I am operating under those beliefs, I cannot experience something outside of that realm of belief, except as what would be known as supernatural, where you have a transcendent moment where, whether it's in a dream, whether it's using plant medicine, or whether it's using, psychedelic things, drugs, whatever, or you just go into nature, or you have a moment when you're looking at your newborn child and all of a sudden it's like you tap into this vast universe. So a little kid watching, like, let's say my daughter, when she was using training wheels, and she would watch some of the older, just a little older kids in the neighborhood dropping the training wheels and starting to ride their bikes. That was a moment where she transcended the limitations of what was possible. They're doing it. Look, they're on a bike without training wheels. They can go so fast. They can go so much further. They've got so much more freedom. Their parents trust them to go much further because they're older and wiser. And she was observing that, going, I want some of that. Well, we all have the opportunities to want some of the truth that is available to us. Course in Miracles says, and listen, I've been teaching for almost 2 decades. It's crazy to believe that I started in 2007, not quite 2 decades, but a long time. And one of the things that has become so evident is a lot of people want the truth, but very few are willing to do what it takes to commit, to question their thoughts, to not believe their own thinking. Because if you believe in training wheels and you believe that that's the only way to be, well, you're going to be 48 years old riding around a bike with training wheels if you make a decision that that is the only truth that is possible for you. And that's what the ego does to us. It holds us in a thinking pattern of immaturity, separation, limitation. That is where we then create idols, because if I'm limited in my power, somebody has to have more power than me. So we create these idols, we give them power, and then we basically say, well, you take care of things, and I'm going to go over here and take care of my limited life. I'm going to take care of my little house, my little box, my little family. I'm going to do just the little things, a few things that I'm comfortable doing. And you go over there and you take care of everything else. You go be famous, you make the laws, you make the medicines, you make the rules, you decide what religion is all about. I'll just stay over here. And just don't disturb my little box over here. You go take all that power. I'm going to give it to you, and you go make decisions. Well, there's only two ways that the ego operates. One is as a victim. I'm small and over here I can't think for myself. Or as a bully, I'm going to get my way and I don't care if it hurts you. So if you're over here taking care of your little stuff and you're comfortable with just a limited amount of joy, a limited amount of potential, a limited amount of experiences, well, guess what? You're basically abdicating your power to external authorities, and you tell them, you handle everything over there, and I'll just stay over here. I'll send you to Washington, or I'll make you whatever head of whatever country. Doesn't have to be the US. This happens everywhere around the planet. And you go make decisions, and you don't have to tell me about them. You don't have to be transparent about them. I don't need to know what you're doing. And you know what? you get to decide how much you spend, and then you just tell me what to pay in my taxes, and I'll keep working over here to pay my taxes. So as long as I have enough money to pay and live for my little lifestyle in this little box. So that's the training wheels. Who doesn't want to give up the training wheels? Somebody who doesn't realize that there is another option. And many want to have more joy, more peace, but they don't want to give up just focusing on their own little world as long as somebody else keeps them safe. That is not letting go of the training wheels. That is entrenching yourself in the training wheels. That's soldering the training wheels to your bike so that you never, ever, ever get out of training wheels. Well, humanity is seeing, okay, something is off. I'm over here trying to stay safe, but my brothers and sisters over there in the Middle East are being, are killing each other. What's up here? Well, many people are saying, keep me safe here and protect those poor victims. Why? Because a victim over here projects to a victim over there. Those poor people that got hurt, well, that's who we want to protect. You people out there that I voted for, you just tell me how much to send you, how much more money to send to Washington, and you go take care of those poor victims. All the while, what is happening? What is happening right now is an opportunity for humanity to see that it is time for us to get up off of our bikes and see that the bike that we have been riding with training wheels has been tethered to an old energy, an old frequency, an old way of being. That is necessary for those that we made idols. Again, we just read this. We just went through, we've got to move. Let me just go re-mention a couple of these things. So in the new beginning, we looked at the rules for decision. That was the first section. We needed to decide that we were not going to make any more decisions by ourselves. Then we went to the place of recognizing we want to see things differently. So I'm not going to decide by myself anymore. I'm not going to decide with ego. I'm not going to decide with training wheels. I want to see things differently. I want to have my mind expanded, meaning I can't go back to the same old people to change things and expect a different result. That's not possible. That's insanity. That's what the training wheels are all about. However, when you want to see things differently, you have to realize that you have, the section number 2 was freedom of will. You have the ability, because God created you to create whatever life you want. And as long as you are believing in the training wheels and separation and death and idols outside of you having power over you, those people get to make the decisions. I'm not going to decide. And you keep watching war happening lifetime after lifetime. And even if you don't remember past lives, you can just look in this one lifetime, how many wars have been going on. I mean, we've only had one president in my lifetime that did not put Americans in another war. Only one president. And you go look it up and figure it out on your own. But here's the thing. As long as we don't recognize that when we give power to an idol outside of us, and that idol is listening to the ego, they have to be listening to the ego if they're not transparent. If they can't tell you what they're doing, if they think that you are, too immature to understand tax codes and whatever, if they treat you like you don't know what you're doing, I can assure you that they're doing things they don't want you to know. So as you begin to wake up, you begin to recognize these things. When you realize how powerful you are and you abdicate your power to somebody else, they are taking that power, albeit using it as force on you. They are absolutely going to be doing whatever they need to do. Thank you for joining us, sweetie. You have a wonderful rest of your day. They will be using that power to make sure that you remain in the little ignorant box so that you don't pay attention to what they're doing. So what's happening in the world today is amazing. People are realizing, you know what? I really want things to change. And I do not want to turn a blind eye. I want to make sure that I see through the change that I want to see in the world. So we went through the freedom of will. You are powerful. God created you as powerful as itself. We are made in the image of the Creator. Course in Miracles teaches us that there is only one thing that is true about God that is not true about us. And this makes perfect sense when you understand it. God created us. We did not create God, but God created us like itself. So we have the ability to co-create with one another. We have the ability to come together and create something that is going to be not only powerful and beautiful and amazing for ourselves, but for the greater good. So we went into the next section, which is beyond all idols. We have to understand that we have given power to external forces. Until we recognize that we give power to the ego mind, we are not going to accept that we gave power to idols. They are the same thing. An idol outside is the reflection of a voice that we listen to that is not the voice of God within. So we listen to a voice in our head, which is the voice of conditioning. That's why as you move down this journey and you let go of listening to the ego, the mind gets really quiet. And the mind gets quiet because you stop listening to the chatter, which is no different than listening to the chatter of the news or listening to the chatter of government or listening to the chatter of the whatever, the gossip or at the office or in the neighborhood. As you choose not to listen to those voices that are contradictory, in conflict, that are always telling you about right or wrong, you got to pick a side, good or bad, right or wrong. When you stop listening to all of that, there's a peace that takes over. Then in that peace, you can come and listen to the truth of who you are. That's why this section that we're in, section 4, says it's the title of it is The Truth Behind Illusions. This is attempting to help us recognize that there is a truth. There is a capital T truth behind the illusion. And the only thing that gives it power is our will, our use of will. Will you align with the voice of the heart, or will you remain listening to the voice of the ego? That is an immature way of perceiving life, and it's okay, but it's a low dimension. If you are ready to give up the training wheels, you've got to give up listening to the ego. You've got to align with the part within you that is way more mature. It doesn't judge. It doesn't blame. It doesn't take sides. It's not going to pick this side or that side. It's not going to pick Ukraine or Russia. It's not going to pick Israel or Palestine. It's not going to pick sides because it understands that all beings, regardless of their ethnicity is a human made up stuff. Culture, that's a human made up stuff. Lands, this land is my land, that land is your land. That's all human made up stuff. Course in Miracles has helped me understand that the world that the ego attempts to make right or wrong, take sides, this is mine, this is yours, is made up. And as long as we are defending cultures or defending sides or defending lands based on this or that or the other, we are complicit in perpetuating the very conflicts that we are beginning to decide we don't want anymore. So if you want to let go of the training wheels, you're going to have to go through a wobbly period, as I shared about my daughter, until you master being on that bike totally and completely without training wheels. So right now we're in the wobbly period. Until you want for both sides to experience freedom, until you want neither side to be governed and to be ruled by people who make backroom deals and are in secret and need more money to protect them. I mean, that's how you know that the world is ruled by the ego. It always needs more money. Oh, you want more protection? You need more money. It's insane. When you operate by truth, protection is free because your alignment is with God. And with God, all things are possible. You know, I recently read something, I can't remember where. This was really recent, some social media place. And it said, instead of going to God to give you answers to your problems, how about if you recognize that there are no problems for God? And it was like, yes, we keep going to God, God, please send me ideas so I can solve my problems. But If you went to God, God doesn't see problems, but you have to align with that energy, that frequency, that power. And it really means that you must mature out of the childishness of the ego picking sides. It's not possible to have heaven on earth while we pick sides, because then which side is going to be the one that gets into heaven? You can't do that. It's either we all go to heaven or all of us are at different levels of hell. So in this section that we're in, the truth behind illusions, let me read paragraph number 3. And as I said earlier when we started today, I'm going to end a little early because I've got to jump on an interview that a friend of mine is doing at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And I've got to join him about 10 minutes beforehand. So let's look at what Course in Miracles says in paragraph number 3. The gap that is not there is filled with toys in countless forms. So what we have been reading in the previous 2 segments is that as immature children, we are scared of our toys. We are scared of the Jack in the Box that's going to jump out because we thought the box was safe, and then all of a sudden it jumps and it scares us. And this gives us an opportunity to look at this, how we have made idols of other people keeping us safe from the Jack in the Box. However, the box itself is not here to hurt us. We are here to experience the box. And if we knew that things are going to be surprising, things are going to happen that are unexpected, if we understood that, if we were trained from the very get-go, and this is the way future generations will be, more and more parents are waking up, having children from a higher level of consciousness. They are training their children to realize, okay, you're not just a body, you're an eternal sovereign being. In this box that you call humanity is going to have some surprises. Don't be afraid of the box giving you a surprise. Come and know the truth of who you are so that you can deal with when these things show up, because until we are solidly grounded in the 5th dimension of consciousness, we're still going to experience 3D type things while we go on that bridge from 3 to 5, 5th dimension. All that means is that the consciousness of humanity is more elevated. You are not riding around in training wheels. We have a maturity that we did not have when we needed training wheels, when we were immature, childish, behaving childishly and selfishly. So this basically says that we have so many toys here. That's just the way that things happen in the 3D world. And each one seeks to break the rules you set for it. Every single time that humanity creates a rule, this is how these people should behave. This is how a politician should behave. They're going to break the rules. This is how a movie star should behave. They're going to break the rules. This is how a husband behaves. They're going to break the rules. This is how a teacher behaves. They're going to break the rules. This is how your uncle should behave around little children. They're going to break the rules, because this is a world that is ruled by the ego. The ego makes rules for others to follow because it's not intending on doing it itself. And the ego cannot follow rules because to follow rules requires integrity and honesty. The ego doesn't have that. Those are not aspects, characteristics of the ego. Those are characteristics of the soul. And while we let the ego run our lives, well, then we're going to have things that are going to be quite uncomfortable. They're going to disappoint because the rules are going to be broken. You know, if the rule was that a military keeps us safe, why do we have so many wars? So, and the military keeps growing, but it's still not keeping us safe. It's not creating world peace. So we got to question, what the heck is going on here? Well, to question, is it time for me to let go of the training wheels, requires a level of maturity, requires a level of willingness to do some search, some, get to the truth. So it never was the thing you thought. It must appear to break your rules for safety, since the rules were wrong. So when you expect a human, just because he's a man, to behave a certain way, to protect and take care of and provide, and you pump him up with pornography and with sports games of people beating each other up in activities like wrestling, and you feed their mind with somehow going to war is the right way to do things, that's a manly thing, well, they're going to break the rules. They're not going to be the loving protector, gentle and caring, because their own psyche is confused. So the rules in this human world have to be broken because they're made up by immature egos. But you are not endangered. You never will be endangered, ever, 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 because, and when I say you, your soul will never be in danger, because the soul is beyond this world. The soul is that which is eternal, and that is the truth of who we are. Basically, think of your whole body as your soul, and the tip of your finger, that nail, that's the ego, and you let the ego run your life. It's like the tail wagging the dog. So we are having to get honest that I've been letting my fingernail run my life, that I've been letting the tail wag the dog. And that's exactly what we need to acknowledge. The rules that the fingernail makes are not going to be of benefit to my hair or to my back or to my feet, because the nail is only interested in one thing, itself. That's how the ego operates. So you can laugh at popping heads and squeaking toys, as does a child who learns that they are no threat to him. Yet while he likes to play with them, he still perceives them as obeying rules he made for his enjoyment. So while we continue to observe the government and say, I need my government to send money to that government so that they can protect themselves from those people, you are playing by the rules that have been taught by an immature aspect of yourself, that you need to go to war to maintain peace. Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, at some point you realize, what? So I'm going to have a committed relationship with my husband, my wife, my partner. So while I'm committing adultery, it's going to keep us connected and monogamous, right? Well, that's what we're saying with war. Oh, as long as we have a military, we're going to have peace. We have been conditioned because our minds are so immature. Our minds are that of an immature child operating with training wheels, because we haven't stood up into our power, claimed it, own it, to the point that we recognize, you know what? I'm not giving my power outside of myself anymore. I am going to take a more active role. And that is going to be necessary for the co-creation of the new earth. All of us together are going to have to work in participating in the collaboration of what it is that we prefer. And we, in order to do that, must come from a place that is balanced, that is not on the training wheels. And we must recognize, I'm not going to let my fingernail run my life anymore. I am going to begin to educate myself in how I can be of service, begin to go to God. That's why we got to quiet the mind so we can hear what this creation wants to express through us, what it wants to transmit through us, because each and every one of us is so important. See, we have been conditioned to, oh, they know better, so they make those important decisions. No, government makes the decisions, doctor makes the decisions, teacher, bosses, they make the decisions. Well, that's pretty immature. You are a powerful being. You have a contribution to make. And your contribution is, at the very least, for you to connect with a source within you that you listen to, instead of being out of fear, listening to external voices. Meaning, don't listen to the things that your husband, your teacher, your preacher, your child, your sister, your brother, your president tells you. Only listen to the voice for God. And so many of us, because we don't know that we're eternal, are afraid of not being liked, are afraid of being alone, are afraid of being rejected. So we make decisions to be liked, even though they are decisions made by our fingernail, because our fingernail wants to be liked by our daughter, or our fingernail wants to be liked by our husband, or by our boss, by the president. And we let all decisions be made by the fingernail. Isn't that silly? We wouldn't do that if we knew what we were doing. But because we're asleep, we don't know what we're doing. We know not what we're doing. That's why Jesus forgave those who crucify him. They didn't know what they were doing. We really don't know what we're doing. So we do have the ability to acknowledge ignorance. Yeah, we're very ignorant. However, that ignorance is going to send us on a timeline of repeating, living in the third dimension where the fingernails run the show. Or you must wake up, cross the bridge, and be part of a new timeline, meaning you're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to take a very active role, not just to react based on what the media tells you, but to study, to observe things, to come to the truth so that you can see where there are things that are not in alignment with God's will for all beings to be free, happy and free. That's why you can't pick sides. And people who pick sides are people who are on training wheels and they need something to protect them because they don't know where the peace and the power exists. So the last couple sentences here say, so there still are rules that they can seem to break and frighten him. Yet, is he at the mercy of his toys? And can they represent a threat to him? This is something that humanity has to face. Are we at the mercy of the rules that have been created that keep us divided and separate and afraid? Really? Do you think that in a world filled with so much abundance that anybody should go without? That anybody should be without a home, without food, without opportunities? We've got to start thinking logically here. Who controls the opportunities in the world? Well, we have created rules. We have given certain people power over others. And those who are in charge, who we have made idols, made authorities, if they are being run by their fingernail, I can assure you, they do not care about you or me or anybody else. Because when the first thing that a government says is, let's go to war, you've got to follow the money. You've got to pay attention to whose pockets are being lined. And humanity over here in their box, trying to keep their little house safe, don't raise my rent, don't raise my insurance, you do whatever you need to do over there, has abdicated power to external authorities that are now coming to squeeze us dry of every last bit of power and penny that they can take, to the point that so much of humanity is finding itself barely making ends meet. And I don't want to leave us on that note because I do have to jump off, but I do want to say that we are at a new beginning, and a new beginning requires an ending. Are you going to end riding training wheels and giving power to your ego, letting your fingernail dictate what happens with your whole life? Or are you going to do what it takes to see how that happened, become self-aware of how you abdicated your power so that you can begin to be part of the collective that is co-creating a new beginning? To have a new beginning, you can no longer be selfishly oriented. It cannot just be about your little box and your little life and being safe. You've got to be willing to put yourself out there. Speak your truth, not caring what anybody thinks. When you have that level of freedom that you can share what you believe in, instead of putting things on Facebook that are just showing the nice things in your life, the funny things or whatever, or the sad things, please pray for this or for, but you begin to speak your truth. You know what? I believe in God. I believe in all beings are free. I'm not going to take sides. I'm going to go to the voice inside. I'm under no laws but God's. Until you're comfortable speaking that truth, you are just protecting your little identity, your little box, your image. That's an idol that we have created. Our image is an idol. Idols are not just outside of us. Idols are what we project outside of us. Yes, the masks that we wear. We are being called right now at a time, and I'm what I am sensing. We have until the end of this decade. I've always said from the beginning that I began to hear this guidance, even before this decade, the 2020 decade is a decade for us to begin to see clearly. And a lot is going to get shaken up to give us opportunities to pick a side. And when I say pick a side, it's not to pick a side of right or wrong, it's to pick a side with the ego or with God. Capital T truth, little t truth. If you choose to side with the ego, you're choosing to stay in the third dimension. That's okay. You're not ready to take off the training wheels. And it would be silly for you to take off your training wheels if you don't believe that you can ride without them. To align with God is to be willing to take on the truth that you are powerful beyond measure, give up your fears, and begin to allow yourself to be inspired, to be informed, to be a bringer of amazing potentials, possibilities for this world that we exist in. Amazing things are ahead for those who are willing to be a part of the new. And to be a part of the new requires that we go through a wobbly time because we've not been there before. It's new to us. With that, I leave you, friends. Thank you so much for listening to this transmission. I'm going to go back and listen to this because there were some things I need to hear. And come back and see me next week. Invite friends to come and hear this or share this with others. And if you're new to this, you can find all the episodes. I think this one's 123. You can find all the episodes in my YouTube channel, Laina Orlando. I love you all. Mwah. Take care. Bye-bye.